Welcome back to the channel. I'm PG. I'm chilling. In this video, I'm going to go over a bracket on bracketfights.com to determine who is the best rapper of the 2020s decade so far. We have 16 rappers, and I feel like maybe one or two of them shouldn't be here. But anyway, this is the field that we have, and we're going to go matchup by matchup. So we've already gone through 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 4 full years of this decade. And feel free to check out the rest of the channel. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. Let's get to it. Let's get bracking. So we're starting off with a already big matchup. Two of the biggest hip-hop titans over the last 10, hell, almost 20 years for Kanye. So once again, I'm talking about this decade, and all the output we have for Kanye really is Donda, the rollout of Donda, and then we have this incoming Vultures. Now, obviously, outside of hip-hop, outside of the music, a lot of debacle, a lot of debate with what's going on with Kanye, but we're putting all that aside, and Drake has put out multiple projects. Honestly, never mind whether you didn't like it or not. CLB, Her Loss, the collab, and then we got For All the Dogs, and then the Scary Hours 3 deluxe added to it. So Drake's been putting in a lot more work this decade, and although I really like Donda, and I would probably pick Donda over any of those albums that we just mentioned for Drake. You can't deny the work ethic and Drake's massive hits, and Her Loss was to me, Her Loss was a big W as far as output's concerned. So one of the very few and rare moments where I'm actually going to pick Drake over Kanye West. Next up, we have Travis Scott, La Flame versus Joey Badass. Now, Joey Badass, one of the better rappers coming out of like the 2010s generation in terms of lyricism, and Travis Scott, obviously not the most lyrical guy, not the most substance-driven music, but you can't deny that Travis has made an impact, musically with his psychedelic trap hip-hop influence. Joey Badass put out the album 2000, which was great, and he's been, he's always had plenty of features across the years. But Travis Scott, I can't praise Utopia enough. If you check out some of my previous videos, the review, my reaction to it, you check out my top 10 rap albums list for 2023. You'll get a feel for my opinion on Utopia. But anyways, I can't deny that Travis Scott has made such an impact. Utopia is just so massive, and Travis Scott's influence has been so massive. I can't pick Joey Badass here, even though I really like Joey Badass as a rapper overall more than Travis Scott. But the artistry of Travis Scott takes the dub here. And now we get to this tough matchup: JID versus Tyler the Creator. Tyler the Creator, of course, he put out Call Me If You Get Lost and the deluxe of that last year as well. And JID has been on a massive roll of the last 2-3 years, really this decade, with the Forever Story, and he's been killing it. Pretty much all his features. Pretty much if he's featured on the track, let's say him and J. Cole have been like two of the best feature rappers this decade. So, and we'll get to Cole later. There's also an impact, a bit of a cultural impact influence with Tyler the Creator as well. But I gotta go by the output here, and I gotta say that JID, as far as lyricism and even the album goes, I would say the Forever Story is better than Call Me If You Get Lost. Yeah, I'm gonna give JID the nod here. It's close, but I'm gonna go with JID. I feel like this is pretty even matchup, but I'm gonna go with JID here. He's just the flows, the everything, and I feel like as an artist is also climbing up. Next, we have this matchup between Denzel Curry and Vince Staples, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these two are both in that XXL 2016 freshman list. Both have definitely made strides. Denzel Curry has put out in this decade, we have Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, and I just feel like that's perhaps his best album, maybe top 2 album of his. And Vince Staples, I believe this decade has dropped the self-titled album, yes, the self-titled album in 2021, and Ramona Broke My Heart in 2022. Both pretty good albums. I'm not like a huge into like both these guys and their catalogs, but I will say that I think Melt My Eyes, See Your Future is better than both the albums that Vince Staples put out this decade. And there's like a cultural impact with Vince Staples, but it's more of like his personality. and you know, his comedy and all that stuff, and just his comedy, but just how he is. But I mean, again, I gotta leave that out of here. In terms of artistically, I think I'm gonna give a slight edge here to Denzel Curry. I just believe that. Also, as a feature artist, I feel like he delivers a bit more than Vince Staples, and I think he's a bit more versatile as well. So I'm gonna go with Denzel Curry in this matchup. We're gonna finish off the left side of the bracket here. We have Drake versus Travis Scott. Kind of how I felt about Kanye versus Drake. I think that the album that Travis Scott has, the one album that he has, the rollout of it, the grandiose nature of Utopia and what Travis Scott can do artistically. Utopia is better than every album that Drake has put out this decade. But do I take that one big piece, and does that overcome the sum of the parts for Drake's catalog this decade? I'm gonna give it a Drake just because, whether it's the one project that's better than all the four, but then again, Drake has put out all those projects. I think Her Loss is probably the best of all those four, and Honestly Nevermind would be the worst of the four. But the output, the hit-making ability as well, just overall, just being present and being a force in hip-hop in each year, I'm going to give the nod to Drake. Next we have JID versus Denzel Curry. This feels like a battle of two rappers that they came up in that kind of in the internet wave of hip hop. Denzel Curry especially, and it's kind of like, I want to say underground, but almost like this like sub genre of underground hip hop. Both these guys kind of came up under, whether it was like the DiCaprio mixtapes, and Denzel Curry with projects like Imperial. So this is a tough matchup too. I just think JID overall is a better lyricist, and when I did my 2022 album rankings, I did take Forever Story over Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. So with that in mind, I'm going to take JID over Denzel Curry. Now we have the semifinal matchup on the left side. We have Drake versus JID. I saw all these things about Drake and the output, but JID has been active every year as well in this decade, and he has the better album. And I think JID overall is more of a dominant feature artist as well. So I think to a casual, I'd saying that, but like people are like, oh well, Drake's always on the radio and he's got these big hits and the success and all that, blah blah blah. But just generally as an artist, I would take JID. This decade, he's been quite dominant. So I'm gonna take JID over Drake. JID in the finals. Now we start off with the right side of the bracket. We have A$AP Rocky versus Earl Sweatshirt. A$AP Rocky hasn't put out a full-length album since 2018 Testing. Last year, Earl put out Voir Dire with The Alchemist, which was great. Again, he's got plenty of features as well throughout this decade. He also put out the album Sick in 2022. Excuse me, time's flying by. So Earl's been clearly more active. A$AP Rocky has features here and there, but I'm not even sure, to be honest. I'm not sure A$AP Rocky should be in this bracket. Not because of his skill overall, but just because this decade hasn't been that active. And Earl Sweatshirt has been. And I would take Earl lyrically as well over A$AP Rocky. Give me Earl Sweatshirt. Kodak Black, here's another rapper I'm not sure should be on this bracket. I'm sure people will hate on that opinion, but I just don't feel like he has a level of artistry as all these guys here in the bracket. But anyway, we have Kodak Black versus Pusha T. Yeah, this is pretty much a no-brainer. I don't think anything Kodak Black has put out is nearly at the height or the level of It's Almost Dry. And Pusha T is just a lethal lyricist and rapper, and he's had some stellar features as well across this decade. So this is a no-brainer to me. Yeah. Now we go on to J. Cole versus Danny Brown. Again, I want you to check out my top 5 rappers of 2023 to see where I have these two guys in. It's interesting because Danny Brown last year had a humongous year, being part of the collab with JPEG Mafia and Scaring the Hose, and then we had his Karanta album near the end of last year, which was great, very mature album. We got a rapper in his 40s rapping like that and talking about matters like rehabilitation and trying to grow from mistakes that he's put in his past. But anyway, then we have J. Cole, who did have an album. He had 2021. He dropped The Off Season, which was a great album, and hopefully the Fall Off coming soon. Hopefully this year. And J. Cole similar to JID, and even more so than JID, slaughters every song he's on. Definitely the best. I think with ease, again, with JID at number 2, I think easily the best rapper in terms of features and killing on feature verses this decade. I think he's the clear number 1. Proved that last year with all his features as well. And he had an album. I think the Offseason is a very good album to stand on. One of Cole's best. I believe it's I'd say his 3rd best album, but he's got a lot of good albums. So, yeah, I'm taking J. Cole here. I just think overall he is a better rapper, lyricist, and the Offseason's a pretty damn good album. And you can't deny Cole's impact on a feature level. Just shattering the industry and the landscape of hip hop with his features this decade. Give me J. Cole. Now we have what seems like what would appear to be lopsided. We have Kendrick Lamar versus Lil Uzi Vert. Kendrick Lamar, obviously, he's very patient with his album and rollouts. Mr. Morale in 2022, still carrying off of that with the tour and everything, and with the Hillbillies song with Baby Keem. And then you have Lil Uzi Vert, who, I mean, he's been active throughout this decade. Obviously, I Just Wanna Rock has been a massive song, one of the biggest songs of this decade in hip hop. And then he put out the Pink Tape last year, which a lot of people had mixed feelings about, as well as I did. There's great songs on there, and there's some really bad songs on there as well. But the Pink Tape is cool, but it's nowhere near the level of Mr. Morale. And I just think overall, yeah, the artistry, the difference in artistry and the thought process of the music is night and day. I feel like Lil Uzi may have more merit to be here. I mean, him and Kodak Black would be an interesting matchup, but I think this is an easy decision here. Kendrick Lamar. Moving on, we have Earl Sweatshirt versus Pusha T. This is interesting because I really like Pusha T and I really like Earl Sweatshirt. And as much as I love, the albums, like It's Almost Dry, and just the way he went at Drake and everything. Again, I gotta keep it this decade. It's Almost Dry is great, and who knows, could be a classic. I don't know if it's as good as Daytona. But Earl Sweatshirt, again, more active throughout this decade. Vardir, great album, sick, solid album. And him and The Alchemist, they make a great team. And Earl's also been around, features with underground guys, rappers like Mike. It's interesting because It's Almost Dry is such a standout here, but has Pusha T really been active in any other year in this decade outside of 2022? I'm gonna go with Earl Sweatshirt. I just think he's and lyrically, it's not like Earl can't compete with Pusha T. In fact, Earl raps about a lot more things than Pusha T. We all know that. So, as much as I like Pusha T, and I'd probably rank him overall as a rapper, I think this decade we're gonna go with Earl Sweatshirt. Now we have this matchup. We have J. Cole versus Kendrick Lamar, and then this would have been this is a interesting debate as far as who's a better rapper. But I'm gonna go by this decade. So everyone can have your internal thoughts about who you think is better. Oh, Kendrick Lamar is more of a better artist, conscious rapper, but J. Cole's also, he goes at it, more of a traditional bar metaphor heavy rapper than Kendrick Lamar is, which is true. Well, is it true? I don't know. Like I said, this is a tough matchup. I mean, these two have always been compared to each other. They had a collab album that will never see the light of day. But yeah. So, like I said, this is who's better this decade. As big as Mr. Morale was, the tour was, I can't deny that the offseason is still a record that I go back to, that I would, even in time, like obviously Mr. Morale's more fresh in my head. It came out a year after. But I think Cole being active year to year with his features, killing it, and Kendrick Lamar obviously having a massive 2022 and not doing aside of like Baby Keem, I can't think of any like feature that off the top of my head that was like strong or memorable compared to Cole over the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm gonna give it a J. Cole. Slander me if you want, but I just think this decade Cole's been dominant pretty much every year this decade with his features. So give me J. Cole. Earl Sweatshirt versus J. Cole, semifinal matchup from the right side. I mean, Earl's definitely more of like, obviously, he's more of an underground rapper. He's more of like the conscious kind of lyricist. Talks more about things like anxiety and mental issues. Not that J. Cole hasn't done that in the past. I'm sure Earl has put out more songs or been on more songs combined throughout the last 4 years than Cole has been. Obviously, Earl has 2 albums to stand on, whereas Cole has the one. But like I said, Cole has had a dominant presence each year this decade, and the offseason's a good album, pretty good album. So, and I'm still revisiting that album. Earl's music is there's time and place for everything. I could play Cole kind of wherever, whereas Earl Sweatshirt's more of a kind of a chilling at home, maybe while I'm like working from home, and more like a chill vibe. And that's with these albums, not just their catalog alone. So I think this decade, I'm gonna go J. Cole. Fate of the World, I'm going with Iguodala. Fate of the World, this decade, I'm going with one of these two. We have JID versus J. Cole. This was an inevitable finals matchup by most hip-hop fan standards for this decade. Both been, as I've been saying, back and forth. I said earlier, said about both these guys, been dominant in terms of features. Ironically, both part of Dreamville. And there are a few songs where these two are on a track together. But I would really have to go back and see like who had a better verse. But that would just determine who's better on the song and not who's had a better decade in hip-hop. I would rather listen. I think the off season's more enjoyable of a record than the Forever Story, but the Forever Story is the better artistic piece, the better album overall than the off season. And that just comes down to, features, and I think that J. Cole has been the number one, I said it as the number one feature rapper this decade easily, but JID would be number 2 in my opinion. So feature versus overall, Cole the album, I would go JID, and to me the tiebreaker is just going to be who I just enjoy listening to more, and just what hits more for me. And to me, I'm going to go with Cole World, J. Cole. So there you have it. This is my result. J. Cole is the winner of my best rapper of the decade bracket. What do you guys think of this bracket, the result? What are your thoughts? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Let me know your feedback in the comment section. To me, J. Cole is the superior and the best rapper of this decade so far. But who knows this year? Maybe JID and Metro Boomin, they plot a strong collab, or J. Cole's The Fall Off could even... I would hope the album wouldn't be a fall. I think I have high hopes for both those projects, but I believe that if The Fall Off does come out this year, that could even cement J. Cole as the best rapper of the decade 4 or 5 years in, and could cement them as one of the best rappers of all time. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. What should I do next? What other bracket should I do next? You let me know. These are my thoughts, my bracket. Cole World. Stay blessed.